The easiest and fastest way to obtain residence in Spain: non-profit residence. Hello, my name Antonio Villena. I am the director of a team of Spanish professionals specialized for more than 33 years in obtaining residence in Spain, mainly people from the Arab world. In this short video you will have a little bit of an introduction, analyzing all the details of what non-profit residence is in Spain. What is it? Who is granted and who is not? In the first place, who is granted non-profit residence in Spain? Non-profit residence is granted to a person who, among other requirements, has sufficient financial capacity, enough economic capacity, but it must be borne in mind that this economic capacity does not have to come, at least not in its entirety, from direct work. This is a very common mistake. If a person has his financial means solely and exclusively from a job, that comes from being a manager of a company, from being an employee, no matter how high he is charged with having economic performance, it does not serve to obtain this type of residence. Why? A very simple reason. It is assumed that if that person in Spain is going to stop receiving that income, then automatically it is denied, and this is a very typical thing, is a very common mistake in this type of residence. Time it takes to grant non-profit residence in Spain. It is one of the fastest residence that exists after Golden Visa. This type of residence does not take more than a month, and even the big majority of consulates, if the documentation shows that it is correct, they retain the passports or request that the passports be left to deliver it in a week, 2 weeks, and at the most some 20 days already with the national residence visa issued. The non-profit residence in Spain is one of the fastest residences in its process. Economic capacity. Source of funds: economic capacity. The economic capacity to be had is established by a very specific formula. Economic capacity. Source of funds: economic capacity. The economic capacity to be had is established by a very specific formula, and is the IPREM, that is established each year in Spain. The IPREM is the indicator of consumer prices, and this IPREM in 2020 is at 537.84 euros, say 538 euros. This IPREM multiplied by 4 is what the person has to receive monthly or its annual equivalent in order to obtain this type of residence. This is what the Spanish administration establishes so that a person can obtain this non-profit residence in Spain. Each additional member would be the IPREM, that is, an additional 538 euros per month, or its equivalent per year, approximately about 6,500 euros per year. 26,000 euros for the first person, and 6,500 euros more per year for each additional family member. This is what the Spanish administration establishes that a person or a family must earn in order to apply for this type of non-profit residence in Spain. And as we have previously said, it cannot be that this money comes solely and exclusively from a direct job of the person who is going to request it. This is a fundamental requirement to apply for non-profit residence in Spain. It should also be borne in mind that there are countries such as Morocco or Algeria, in which the status, in which the government does not allow money to leave the country. So how does the Spanish state assess that this person can stay in Spain? If you have this income and income, they cannot move here to Spain. The formula in these cases, we are talking about Morocco and Algeria, is that the money, or a part of the money, minimum of that money, that is in a bank or a country in an investment fund, that is not the country where this person is, and that prevents money from leaving that country. It means that a person who, for example, is in Morocco or is in Algeria and has their income, if you have part of the money that you will need for the first year of its maintenance in a bank outside the country, and in a government that allows the money to be transferred to Spain, then there is no problem. It means a single person because at least 26,000 euros must be in a bank account outside the country for the first year of maintenance for the non-profit residents in Spain, regardless of whether you also have this monthly or yearly income that we have been talking about earlier. For example, if they are two people, well, then instead of 26,000 euros we are talking about 32,500 euros, they have to be in a bank account outside the country. For the first year of non-profit residence in Spain, they have to be available, and they have to be in a country where there is no problem with money going out, regardless of whether you also have this monthly or yearly income that we have been talking about earlier. For example, if they are two people, well, then instead of 26,000 euros we are talking about 2,500 euros, they have to be in a bank account outside the country. For the first year of non-profit residence in Spain, they have to be available, and they have to be in a country where there is no problem with money going out. It is evaluated correctly or more positively to grant non-profit residence in Spain that the money is in a Spanish bank. Opening of bank accounts in Spain. Common mistakes. You cannot deposit or open an account in a bank with significantly large amounts such as the one we are talking about without first having a protocol in which the bank is informed of where the person's funds come from so that they will enter that money, in this case, to apply for non-profit residence in Spain, because if not, the bank will automatically block the bank account first. They will not allow you to open it, and if you open it, of course they block it. Even the bank does not even have the power to allow this income, but it is a specific department that each banking center must be specialized. This apparently seems a bit difficult, but for those of us who have been doing this for years and almost always act with the same banking entities and with the same departments within those banking entities that have known us for many years and who know the procedures, we are talking about procedures with which bank accounts are open in 24 hours with the account open and active, even to buy more than 500,000 homes, a procedure that if we do it with the right bank direct with the central office of the bank, because it will not have any problem. In fact, with all the banking entities we work with so many years since we know the operation and what they ask of us, and we have a great activity, and there are no problems with the opening of accounts to apply for non-profit residence in Spain. These are procedures that for those who do not have experience may seem difficult, but they are not for our clients. We have experience in it. The medical insurance that the person has to have is medical insurance that can cover you, or has to cover any medical, dental, etc., whatever it may be, not just emergencies. It is a very common mistake for the applicant for non-profit residence in Spain to present medical insurance with the company that normally covers visas. It is a mistake. The medical insurance that we are talking about is not medical insurance like that of a visa. Visa health insurance covers an emergency or covers any incident. The medical insurance that is requested, which must be requested to qualify for non-profit residence in Spain, is medical insurance that allows you any medical assistance, whatever it may be, and without a copayment. Very important to also keep in mind that no copay. They are common mistakes that can cause a non-profit residence application in Spain to be rejected. Regardless of this, there are also companies that are specialized in this type of insurance for foreigners, and especially non-community foreigners, who are extremely agile, and who attend in any language 24 hours a day, who have very extensive medical and hospital coverage, which they also have, or prepare the necessary certificates in a suitable way, and within 24 hours. And apart from that, the fees are very ordinary and very normal fees. It is also important that this type of insurance is adequate to apply for non-profit residence in Spain. Medical certificates. Common mistakes. Medical certificate. The medical certificate must first of all be issued by a medical center, or a doctor, that is recognized by the consulate, where we will present the documentation to obtain non-profit residence in Spain. We cannot present any medical certificate from any medical center, or from any doctor. Only the authorized doctors, and the medical centers authorized by the consulate, in particular where you go to present the documentation. This is very important. There is another important requirement, the certificate, that certifies that the person does not have a contagious disease with respect to the international regulations of 2005, simply that phrase. Signature and stamps. Enough for the medical certificate to serve us, and that of course we have said that that doctor or center doctor is recognized by the consulate. And even then we can also be making a mistake, and that it does not serve us. The error is that this medical certificate must be authenticated by the consulate, or must be in its absence with the apostille of The Hague depending on the country where the non-profit residence in Spain is presented. Another important requirement, the police record, or criminal record, as it is said in Spain. The police record or criminal record must be presented from where one has been residing for the last 5 years. It must not be presented from the country where one is a national, nor from the country where one resides. It must be presented from where we have been receiving the last 5 years only and exclusively. Also important is that the certificate of police antecedent must come authenticated by the Spanish consulate, or with the apostille of The Hague in the countries that are subscribed to the Agreement of The Hague. And of course all the documentation that is presented for non-profit residence in Spain has to be translated by a sworn translator. What good is a sworn translator from Spain? Which would serve any sworn translator, or a sworn translator from the country of origin, where we are going to present the documentation, that, in this case, must be authenticated by the Spanish consulate, or with the corresponding Hague apostille. All of these are common requirements for this type of non-profit residence in Spain. The day of the presentation, the day in which we are going to present the applications for non-profit residence in Spain, is an important day, important because the consulate, the official on duty, or the head of the department, especially in some consulates for issues that it is not appropriate to explain here, they have an obligation or indications to ask and exhaustively, or find out, if that person, or that family indeed meets the conditions to reside in Spain, and if they really want, and will become, effective in Spain. They can ask individually to each family member who applies for non-profit residence in Spain the questions they deem appropriate, and of course, if not answered correctly, not only can that file or application be denied. For this reason it is important to know that they can ask and answer us correctly. We normally advise the client broadly and in depth on these interviews, and of course we go along with the client that day to deliver the documentation to the consulate. This is very important, not only because of the interview, but because of the documentation that is delivered to apply for non-profit residence in Spain, that the official who receives it, if he has any doubts, that can ask us and clarify any documentation. Many times in each consulate, as they say here in Spain, each teacher has his booklet wants to be presented in one way or another. You have to talk to the official that the documentation is correct, that it is a defensible documentation, that the official see that it is all good, that you close the folder and collect the passports to put the visa, and in this way they are quickly calling and approving the documentation of the non-profit residence in Spain. The approval of this type of non-profit residence in Spain does not take more than a few days, does not reach a month. In fact, most consulates usually keep their passports at the time they receive the documentation, to already issue the visas and passports. Once the non-profit residence in Spain is approved, they communicate it to us telematically. They also communicate it to the client, normally by phone. It must be taken into account that these phones must always be operational, the phones that are put on the forms, and once they go to the consulate, they collect the passports with the corresponding visas already printed. They have 90 days to come to Spain to make their mark. Police fingerprinting. Fingerprinting. At the moment we receive the communication, we are requesting an appointment with the police to take the fingerprints. Taking fingerprints for non-profit residents in Spain is easy. You just have to go with a copy of passports, fees and photographs. We always go along with the client in the fingerprinting. Once the fingerprint is taken, the documentation is collected. The police already have the approval in their database. You do not have to carry any type of document, they already have it in the system computer. From there in about 20 days the card is collected. This is an easy procedure. I hope this video has served you, in which we have talked about the non-profit residence in Spain, and if you liked it, I recommend you like it on YouTube, Facebook, or that you fill out the free newsletter, so that we are in contact and receive any kind of news. We are also at your disposal through our website, or by email or WhatsApp. Also through our page you can fill out a very simple form of 9 questions, through which it will tell you immediately whether or not you can access the residence. We hope that we can see each other, and we are at your disposal. Greetings.